Yeah, we're live. Everybody, we are now live, so I will reconvene our budget workshop. This is day two, potentially 3-day budget workshop starting at 6 p.m. with a stop around 9 o'clock. But as mentioned last night, we may be able to wrap up things this evening, and I'd rather go a bit longer and avoid Friday night if we can. So let's be prepared for potentially past 9, but within a reasonable time past 9. That's how we'll do it for tonight. So we left off. We finished off page 12 of operating yesterday, and we began our initial round of unfunded additions to the operating budget. We did do the library last night, and we added that on to our potential tax levy increase, and we are sitting now at plus 4.82% from when we began yesterday at 6.49. So with that, we will now continue with our review of members of council for unfunded additional items that may affect the operating budget. And I know we're going to start off with our childcare discussion. So I'll ask Councillor Barnhart to perhaps begin our discussion on potential for the childcare from a report we had received last week, I believe. So Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor. So there is a motion that's prepared. It's up on the screen. Would you like me to speak to it or read it first?
Yes, we've actually been going with the motion as opposed to we did last year. So please begin with the motion and please speak your motion when you're done.
Okay. It's more than an idea. It's a motion.
It is.
Okay. I move that the proposed 2024 municipal operating budget be amended by adding 2 early childhood educator full-time equivalent positions, $60,000 per position per year, for the Early Learning Childcare Center in order to facilitate the expansion of the ELCC by 10 spaces as set out in the November 21st, 2023 Committee of the Whole Report, Childcare Services Business Plan, to be funded from the tax levy. It's a long sentence.
Thank you. Please speak your motion,
Yes,
Councillor Barnhart.
I'd love to. Thank you. Well, in the report that we received and we heard from the administration last week, I think it was, yes, it was just last week. We realized that there is an option here for increasing the return on investment there by actually getting money back from parents to pay for these positions if we increase the number of spaces that we have. And I, for one, know, and I think council is well aware that within the community, even though there are many more daycare spaces than there were in the past, there's still a shortage because of our growth. So based on the number of spaces that we can provide and the fact that we know there is a federal grant, a provincial grant, excuse me, that's available, it's receiving some federal support as well, that based on the report we received, we'd be able to actually pretty much break even on this strategy. So that's my motion, Mayor, and if there's any members of the committee that have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. I just had a message I had to type it there. I was doing 2 things at once and my fat fingers got in the way of my typing. Members of council, questions for Councillor Barnhart or for our administration on the motion in front of us here? Councilman Telebus, Nathan, you have the floor.
Thank you. I guess just for everyone's knowledge here, this is, I guess, tailored potentially towards you, Councillor Barnhart, but just clarifying that with this proposal, that we would be near a break-even point in terms of the finances. Obviously, it's critical that we get as many early learning spaces that we can for all the youth within the community, or young children, I should say. But I just want to make sure that it's not going to significantly impact the budget.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, would you wish to speak to that? Go ahead, please.
Just certainly if the administration wants to add to it, but what I would say, Councillor Natellenbos, is that one of the interesting things about what can be done in childcare is there's ways of shifting around depending on the need, the number of children of a certain age, and so then the cost can also be adjusted. What I saw in the strategy that the educators are looking at doing and the administration is actually maximizing the number of spaces and the revenue to get closer to the 100%. So that's my understanding of the strategy. Whether or not there's a reduction in infant spaces or an increase in preschool or toddlers, all of the fees are different depending on that. So it's a formula that they can follow, and one that I think they are well prepared to. They're moving in the right direction, and this to me serves more of our citizens, as well as it provides an opportunity for that strategy to take place. So yes, in answer to your question.
Thank you, Councillor Barnhart. Councillor Telebas.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, that was my understanding of it too. If I remember correctly, we were nearing that 96% for basically full reimbursement for the services we provide, which was the ultimate goal that council had asked from this service here. So it will be something that I'm supporting because obviously it helps out the community in terms of childcare. But if we're seeing that return on our investment, then I think it's a good motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. I have a quick question before I go to my next speaker. Mr. Blanco, if you could indulge me for a moment. Does this affect the tax levy? I remember the report we had from Ms. Williston and her colleague last week. I can't remember the exact details. Would you mind just for the record, let me know to that question, please? Thank you, Mr. Blanco.
Sure, I can do my best, and then Ms. Wilson may be able to correct me, but the intent here is that the revenue generated from these positions would offset the positions 100%, so there would be no impact from the taxes if the revenue is above and beyond or even to the position cost.
That's my understanding. Thank you. Just for clear on our discussion and any implication, we are still on operating and any effects on operating, which will affect the tax levy. Thank you, Mr. Blanco, for clarifying. Mr. Penrod, Philip, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to speak for this motion in favor of it for the reasons Councillor Natellenbus just highlighted and was just confirmed by Mr. DeBlanco. I'll just add only this. These are 10 spots that are sorely needed in the community, and happy to pave the way to make those happen.
Thank you, Councillor. Any additional comments from members of council on this particular motion as part of operating? Seeing none, I will ask council to please vote on the motion before you. Thank you. Thank you, council. That carries unanimously, 7-0. Thank you, Councillor Barnhart. Appreciate that. I'm looking forward to that expansion of 10 sites, and it'll help our community with more spots for daycare. I think every daycare is pretty full, and it's really 10 spots will be welcome, I'm sure, in the community. Next, I'll go on to the next councillor who wishes to bring forth a topic for additional consideration for operating budget, pardon me. Sam, Councillor McCall-Swain, you have the floor, Sam.
Yeah, thanks. I'll move us to dive into transit if that's okay.
Yes.
So I'll ask Ms. Boudreau to maybe bring up the report here, if that's possible. Sorry. Yeah, if that's okay, and then we can.
She'll outline some comments, concern, then you'll put a motion forward when you're ready. Yep, great, thanks.
Thank you. As you zoom in, so you know, a lot of this, or some of the discussion happened in closed session on Tuesday for good reason. But now that we're able to have this in an open session, I just wanted to make sure that we tell the narrative around some of the things that we talked about, or we're going to be talking about, I should say. So just for awareness for everyone here and everyone listening, you know, we had a transit system that we have been running since 2017. That has kind of morning commuter service into Edmonton and afternoon commuter service in from Edmonton back here. We spent a lot of time with our 13 regional municipal partners on a regional transit model that got brought down to 8 municipalities that were moving forward with that. We had a very, very good solution there. Unfortunately, Edmonton chose to pull out of that, leaving us to scramble to come up with a solution on how we can deliver effective transit for our residents. I think personally, for me, the system that we had in place was it was a necessary step to start, but it was in my view anyway, not good enough to deliver what we needed. Last bus leaving at 7:30 a.m. Not everyone can make that, and then you've got a gap. And folks who are working a little bit late, if they miss that last bus home, you're needing to catch a taxi or an Uber home. Nothing on weekends, etc. So what we're trying to do at the commission, we're unfortunately failed. Administration did a great job to go back and look at some regional options, and so I thank administration for that. Really taking a look at how we could work sub-regionally, right? So if the whole region isn't going to work together, let's see what we can do with Leduc and Leduc County. And I truly appreciate all the effort, especially from Leduc Transit to bring this forward. So in the report that is now publicly available here, there are 5 options to be considered. I won't read through them all, but for me, my priority here is I think transit is an essential service that is delivered in municipalities, just like recreation, etc. So looking forward to having a discussion today amongst the group. I'd like to move a motion, and then I know there's going to be a lot of discussion, and I would ask that there is transit on demand, which is unfunded in the back of this budget, but I think this would be appropriate for the time to we'll talk about this motion here, but I think we should include that as part of the transit discussion, for lack of a better term. So the motion that I'd like to move is if we could put the motion up on the screen, please. It will be looking at option 4, and I'll explain my thinking around that. So I'll move that the proposed 2024 municipal operating budget be amended by adding transit service as set out in option 4, sub-regional transit route in the amount of 517,000, adjusted for 2024 as required, and I'll get into that. As set out in November 28, 2023, report sub-regional transit presentation and to be funded from the tax levy.
Thank you, Councillor. Please speak to your motion if you wish to at this time.
Thank you. So what does option 4 get us? And then I'll speak to the cost of that. And we're gonna have to do a bit of a dance here. So if you don't mind going back to the report. Yes, please, sorry. So option 4, if you kind of zoom into the 2 half pages. So again, to remind folks, and maybe to finish off the narrative before, when that decision from Edmonton killed the regional transit model, this council took a tough, but I would say prudent decision to cut our transit service in half until we evaluated where we were at. So the transit, I know that affected a lot of people, not an easy decision. Right now, in this operating budget, we have, I think it's around $240,000 in the operating budget. If we were to carry on the system that we have today, personally, I don't think that's good enough or acceptable for our community. And so what I'm proposing here in option 4 significantly increases transit for our community. So what does that entail? Option 4 provides weekday service. So peak and off peak at every 40 minutes, basically from Beaumont, the Ken Nickel into the Millwoods Transit Center. And those who want can get on a bus or get on the LRT that is now up and running. That is during the weekday. And this option also gets us weekend off peak hours. And so again, these are running at 40 minutes. And we have the flexibility as we design the program to adjust those times depending on what that looks like. But just to highlight the difference, just to be crystal clear, right now the buses, there are 4 buses that leave in the morning, and then there's a large gap during the day, and then the same buses that come back in the afternoon. So what this does is it gets us the ability for people to want to get into the city during the day and also on weekends as well. I think one of the key things for me that I keep hearing about when I'm hearing from transit riders is the main concern is not being able to get there for the last bus, right? If you're a stay-at-home parent and wanting to bring your kids into the city for the day, I certainly struggle to get my kids out the door on time and rushing to get to the last bus. Same with senior community as well. That last bus is just is tough to get to. So by providing service during the day, it's really going to open up that ability for us to for our residents to access into Edmonton. And the same thing on weekends. I hear a lot of feedback. People want to get into Edmonton, go to the malls, go to the different events that are available in Edmonton, but on the weekends not available. I will speak very briefly around, because I know some other folks had some thoughts around this, around the value of transit, right? And so when people are looking to choose where they want to go and live, or when businesses are going to choose where they want to invest, one of the key things that they look at is what does the transit system look like? And if you looked at our transit system today, it is not a drawing factor for Beaumont. So there are multiple reasons. We have a lot of university students here who take the bus, and right now it doesn't provide the flexible hours. You have to catch it at 7:30. If your classes are done at noon, you got to wait for 3 hours around, so it's just not worth it. And then you end up driving, pay for parking, etc. So for me, option 4 is the way to go here. I do want to speak to the other options that are in front of us here, because what option 4 is for me is a staged approach. Would I love to have the full-blown transit option that's there in front of us, which some of the other options is not just Beaumont to Millwoods, but also Beaumont out to the airport. I'd love to be able to do that. But for me, I think we need to take a staged approach. And so stage 1 for me is to increase that frequency into Millwoods. When I talk to people, they always about transit, their number 1 preference is increase it into Edmonton. And then, yeah, if we can get out to the airport, get out to the some of the job market that's out there, that's a nice to have. So I think it's more of a gradual approach. So those are my comments on the options. But what I do want to do is just dive into the math briefly here. So I'll have Curtis entertain us and walk through some of the math with my fellow councillors here, just so that we can make sure what we're actually voting on. So if you scroll down to just a hair, option 4 there, perfect. So the cost estimates is about $517,000. We call it the net deficit. So that's where we start. So what I mentioned before, I think we've already got $240,000 in our tax levy. So in that 6.49, there's already $240,000 in there. And so just follow along with me here, folks. To me, that brings us down to 277,000 K that would increase, that would need to increase into the tax levy here. So keep $277,000 in your mind. But during our discussion, and it was in closed session, so I'm not sure if I can say that or not, but let me just say, we anticipate that this is most likely going to get up and running at the start of Q2 by the time it takes everything to get ready. So for me, the way that I think we should budget for this, instead of going back to my earlier conversation, I don't think we should be paying a full year of this expanded transit option when we're not using it. We shouldn't be taxing folks for time when we're not using it. So of that 277K that's left over, to me, I think we should be timesing that by 0.75 if we're only going to be using that for 3/4 of the year. So that 277K times 0.75 to account for using the additional service for 3 years gets us to 207,750, 750, or roughly a 0.82%. I wonder, Curtis, Mr. DeBlanco, do you follow that math? Are you comfortable with that? So when you're going to do your little calculation on that, where we're at with our tax levy, I would be comfortable if the number that you put in was 207,000, just to show what that would look like. But I just wondered if you could just respond to that the math.
Mr. Blanco?
Yeah, thanks for the question. The only other thing that might want to be considered is the existing transit service for the first quarter of the year. So we talked about the 240 is what is existing on the tax levy. We wouldn't, if taking that prorating approach, we'd still want to have a prorated amount for that first quarter.
Yeah, I thought that we would be using that 240K. We're going to be going anyway. So our service, January, February, March, I'm not touching that. I think we're paying 100% for those 3 months anyway. So that's why I only put 7.75 by the new service. But if you want to save us more, I'm happy to go your route.
That should,
We're saying different things, I believe, but.
yeah. Yeah. We'll just take a second here, Mr. Blanco, just look through the math here. Mr. Blanco, if you're ready to go, your microphone's on, sir.
Sorry if I'm understanding correctly. I understand what's proposed is prorated service for April to December for the new transit. Old transit service would run January through March. So that 240 number that is funded for the existing service, we wouldn't pull the entire 240 out. That number would be prorated as well for that first quarter.
Okay, so let me ask you then, what number would you put in to increase our tax levy?
Let's hold up.
Yeah, let's take a second and let's work through the math. It's important. That's the wrong slide there, right? Look at it. That's the wrong slide. He's looking at the wrong slide. Right.
So the net number that would be an increase to the tax levy is 228,000.
220.
228,000.
Not 207. 228?
Not that option.
Okay.
No, because that. So maybe to help our council, and when I say our council, I mean me. Maybe just walk us through how you did that calculation, please.
I'm just going to put some extra color on here. So we're only unfunding the portion of the existing service from April through December. We're not unfunding January through March.
That's
So
80 grand.
that's 240 multiplied by 9 months. So that's reduction of the existing service. Funding of the new service for 9 months of the year is that amount right there.
Yeah, okay. So we're 20, sure. The number 228,000 to get us transit during the day and on the weekends. Okay, thank you. The last thing I'll say here is talking about that staged approach, that there's also the unfunded bus on demand in here. Again, this is another thing that I would love to have, but for 778,000, I personally, I can't. I know that when you think about transit, this is we need that bus on demand to help bump up our ridership. I totally understand that. But to me, this is let's get this updated transit system going, and new transit system going. And this is something that we consider for next year's budget. So I'll leave it there. I know there's going to be lots of thoughts and discussion, but appreciate you giving me time on the mic, and thanks for doing the math.
Thank you, Councillor. I will go to the councillors in a moment. I usually tend to have other councillors before I speak, but I will go jump ahead for a couple of quick comments. I do appreciate your comments, Councillor McGough-Swain. Some history as well too that Sam didn't mention was that the Transit Commission was supposed to start regionally January 1 of 2022. It had delayed till January 1 of 2023. So we were expecting our regional transit system to be in place 18, almost 20 months ago. It didn't happen that way. Unfortunately, a year ago, Edmonton made the decision to not fund the Transit Commission. Hence, we're looking at a regional submodel. I'm also convinced that transit is something Beaumont needs. Economic development will be huge because employees can come and work in Beaumont in our new innovation park in the future by using transit. People who can work in Edmonton now can, instead of having 2 cars, they can actually work in Edmonton with the transit system from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. during the week. I think it's 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. It's a bona fide transit system that provides buses every 40 minutes all day long. So people can work in downtown Edmonton if they want to and not have a second car. That's a choice they may want to make. Students can live at home now and actually go to school and be able to go to school at 10 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon and be home. This is a huge investment for us. It's huge for our community. I'm very big on this idea. We've been talking transit for several years now. I also make one thing clear too. I've been in council 7 years now. The Transit Commission committee was by far the busiest committee I've ever seen on council. For Sam as our representative, I was the alternate, and also for our administration. Our administration has spent countless hours in 2021 and 2020, 2021, 2022 to get the Transit Commission up and running. Then it got delayed. More work. It got delayed again. Then it eventually got canceled. So huge amount of work was done by administration in the past number of years on council. Sam was our leading member on that committee. I was a backup. I was there a few times, but he spent many hours too. So he's well versed in transit. And this report from Mr. Johannes Wong was a very good report. It was very, very detailed and gives us all the options we were looking for. So I'm looking forward to personally supporting this motion. I think it's a very, very good use of tax dollars. It's coming in by my math, roughly 0.89%, 0.89 of 1% increase in our tax levy to give our residents an actual bona fide, legitimate transit service that'll give our residents and business opportunities many opportunities going forward. Sorry, I said that poorly, but I'll move on now to our members of council for comments on this particular motion and subject. Councillor Penrod, followed by Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, followed by Councillor Barnard. Councillor Penrod, Philip, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. So I'm referring to page 13 of the report to begin my remarks, if I might. And it's under risk analysis.
Sorry, so 13?
Yeah. Hopefully the page numbers haven't changed. I noticed we've updated a couple tables to represent the new math. Sorry, not the budget of the transit report that we were just looking at. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's 9 pages. So yeah, so what I'm looking at is the report we saw the other night. So yeah, I know it's because, okay, so we might not be able to see it. But
which page you need to look at? Which table?
Page 8? Sounds like. Yeah.
We'll try and find it for you.
It's okay. Yep, there we go. Thank you. So investing in an expanded transit system will help the city to achieve aspirations outlined in, and here's the laundry list of our master plans: Beaumont's municipal development plan, our complete community, transportation master plan, our connectivity, social master plan, our inclusivity, and the equity, diversity, and inclusion framework. Providing a convenient and reliable local and regional transit service is an opportunity to work towards an inclusive, equitable, and complete community where Beaumont residents have increased mobility regardless of stage of life, ability, or income level. I start there because that's the 10,000 foot piece. When I read this report, I marked that as, this is the big picture. These are the values pieces. And Councillor Monkoff-Swain has already spoken well to that, as well as Mayor Daniluk. That's the piece I need to keep coming back. So I don't actually disagree with anything that you've laid out, except for maybe some of your math. But I think we're fixed up there now. I want us to think carefully about what's the best place to start building back our transit. Everybody understands that we had a plan. Some things that were completely out of our control, including COVID, derailed that plan. And thankfully, we don't have to start from scratch. But we do have an opportunity without a lot of invested infrastructure to begin building the transit that we want to see that's going to serve our community for decades to come. So talking in the community, I think a lot of people think about transit as a want that we can't afford. And it's true. Knocking on doors, talking to people at community gatherings, I don't hear a lot of people saying, you know what I'd really like to have? You know what I want for Christmas is a more robust transit system. And that may be true, but a not insignificant minority in our community, call it 10, 15, possibly even up to 20%, talk about needing transit if they're going to be able to live in this community. We're talking about seniors thinking about moving out of our community because they don't have access to adequate transit services. We're talking about students looking at moving out of our community because they can't afford the additional fees on top of tuition to drive daily, park daily. Everybody, I see nodding heads because everybody understands that if it's not in their household, they can see it coming down the road, either kids or grandkids. And that's a huge part of our population in Beaumont. That bubble is coming quick. So we can't start planning and building this system soon enough, frankly. If we want it to be there when a bunch of our residents are really going to need it, we have to start today. So this is what Councillor Monkoff-Swain has suggested is one step. I just wonder if we're not in a position to actually take 2 steps today that will benefit us and help push us further down the road. So I did my math, actually not thinking about the 240 currently invested. So the numbers are even better than I'm going to lay out for you here. And I don't want to belabor it, so I don't think we need to go through all of the options. But essentially what Councillor Monkoff-Swain is proposing is more trustworthy so that folks that are already using it or already contemplating using it can actually make their plans and rely on it without thinking about, shoot, if I have to do one extra thing at work, am I not going to get home for my responsibilities? I'm going to miss that connection, all that kind of stuff. So what I'd like to suggest is that we look at one of the options that builds out in a different direction. We have a not insignificant part of our population that works and plays towards the Edmonton International Airport and the various routes that are contemplated out that way. So that's what's captured under the route called either Mill Woods to EIA or sometimes Beaumont to EIA, depending on which option you look at. So if you're really interested in transit, dig through this report. There's all kinds of fascinating stuff there. We're not going to get to where we want to be this year. But what I'd like us to consider today to bring my remarks to a conclusion is either looking at option 3, which is only marginally more expensive than option 4. Again, so in my numbers, I have accounted for the fact that we're only starting going forward from April, so beginning of Q2. The numbers that I have here will be discounted by a further 0.71% of an increased levy. So option 3 would actually be 2.34% minus 0.71. So that would be right around 1.5. So 1.6. Yep. And option 3 would add in that service so that now people can get to Edmonton International Airport via possibilities of stops in Royal Oaks and Leduc County. And it does also option 3. So again, the big point that I'm making is it's only marginally more expensive than option 4, but it adds a pile more service.
Mr. Penrod, if I may just ask a quick question on the
Yep.
screen. Oh, thanks, Sam. Mr. Penrod, on option 4, as proposed in the motion, it shows $517,003. Option 3 shows $750,000. You said there's a marginal difference in cost. Are we talking about this? I think between 517 and 70 is a bit more than marginal. Are you looking at the right option? You mentioned EIA, and are you thinking of option 1 possibly? When you mentioned the locations, I'm just making sure that you're talking the right option, that you are. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying option 3 and 4 right there are not quite as close as I would consider to be marginal.
Yeah,
Could you maybe just?
you're not incorrect. I have not highlighted option 1
Okay.
simply because it doesn't offer any weekend service.
No
And so I
problem. So
think,
option 3.
yeah,
Okay, just
that's
so we're
right.
clear. Thank
And
you.
so I guess marginal is one of those words that's up for interpretation.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
So option 3 for me, the decider there is it does offer weekend hours. And I think if we want to build ridership, we have to give people the opportunity to experiment with what's going to work for their household. 3/4 of the year, I think, is a good amount of time for people to build out their plans. And so I think that would see a significant bump in ridership. Again, when we're talking about young people, especially, we have this amazing opportunity to actually capture potential transit riders before their habits fully harden. And especially when people start thinking about investing in vehicles or coveted parking spots in the city or other places, right? So I won't belabor that point. The only other thing that I'd like to add into the mix, as I think this through, is the option for the pilot project for on-demand transit in Beaumont. So the option there that I'm looking at is the weekday service. Again, that's not perfect. However, when we're thinking about on-demand, we're not necessarily thinking about people traveling to work primarily. So I think it's less of an issue to not have the weekend service. My other thought with on-demand transit internal to Beaumont, and we want to be clear about that the on-demand service is not envisioned to take you anywhere in the region other than right here around Beaumont. And I think there are options for seniors, children, youth who are looking for rides. There are more options on the weekend to get help from folks, including volunteer organizations that exist here in Beaumont on the weekends than there are weekdays. So I think that's probably enough for me to say as far as complicating the conversation right now. I just want us to return to that big picture and think through the idea that the time to start building for the future that we want is today, right? So this motion that we're considering, it's a step. I might call it a half step. It's a half step in the right direction. I just wonder if we couldn't go a little further this year.
I can come back to you for any potential amendments possibly, but I'll give everybody a chance to speak first. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have that much more to say than what's already been said. I'm still absorbing Councillor Penrod's suggestions. Could someone from administration please remind me, what are the hours for off-peak?
It might be nice to just explain to folks.
So hang on.
Right.
So on the report, I believe it defines weekend. Let me just see here. Hang on a second. Each option is a little bit different.
You can zoom in there.
Yeah,
Right there, okay. Thank you.
it depends on the
And-
option itself. Yeah. So option 4, for example, is
Off-peak.
Yeah,
Okay. That's off-peak.
yeah, off-peak.
But option 4 is peak. It's peak hours.
You can do your mic, sorry.
We don't have a mic for her. Can we, Curtis, can we grab the mic just from behind you there for Ms. Raymond? Might just be a little easier. Thank you, Ms. Raymond.
Traveling. I'll break that.
Oh.
Didn't want to name anyway. So, thank you for the question. So option 4, it has weekday, all day, which is the peak and off peak, and then weekend off peak hours. So it would be weekday all day. And then the weekend is that off peak between 9:30 to 4 p.m.
Perfect, thank you. And I think we kind of discussed this, and this is probably not where we need to have this discussion, but I think it's prudent to think about it and to sort out having a stop at the bottom of the hill at the very least, with whichever option we go with, if we can. Just because I think, especially if we don't have on demand, I think then you're really requiring people to still have a vehicle to try to get to the bus at some point. If we only have one stop in the middle of the city, I just think it still makes it just that little bit difficult for people to get to it, especially if they live down the hill. So if that's something that we can consider, and I know that there's probably some work that has to go into that as to where the bus can stop and whatnot, but just wanted to keep that top of mind, as I think that's important.
So Councilor Cook, then what we would have to do is, if we were to pass this motion, for example, between now and April 1st, we could have administration explore that additional possibility and assess the additional cost that may be, and then we have a second decision to make. But we have to do, yeah, that would have to be a next step, but your point is taken. Thank you. Is that everything at this point, Councilor Cook, or you have a second?
Yeah, otherwise I think for myself, I certainly support transit. Councilor Penrod brought up some interesting points to consider, but I think for all the reasons people have already said, it definitely is important to have in our community. So.
Thank you, Councilor. I appreciate that. Councilor Newkirk, followed by Councilor Barnard, followed by myself possibly, and then I'll go to round 2 with actually, Nathan, I'll probably have you speak here in round 1 before I go to Sam for round 2. Okay? Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm gonna make some comments about transit, and then I'll move into something else after that.
Okay?
So just the main thing that I want to say, in addition to the positive aspects that have been presented already about transit, is just really want to reiterate that what we're asking for in Beaumont, and what everyone wants and needs in Beaumont, is 2 new high schools. What's that mean? We have a whole bunch of new drivers coming on board and on stream. What does that mean? We have a whole bunch of students in Beaumont who are considering post-secondary schooling, post-secondary training, jobs, and just I really want to underscore the importance of having something in place like transit in some way, shape, or form. Here we're gonna discuss that soon, more in depth, it seems now, which is fine. But having that in place now is so important. The work that we're able to do with transit to get transit in place is going to reduce congestion going north. You've heard me talk about so much about parking. Well, how about thousands of less vehicles potentially parking on the streets if families don't have to go out and buy vehicles to get the students traveling among the region, right? So there's a couple more reasons for that. I don't see Edmonton moving very quickly because they traditionally wait for developers to double lane 50th Street past 41st Avenue. We all know what a nightmare that is. So whatever we can take vehicles off the road by providing a positive useful transit is where we need to be. So, I just want to really put that forward. The motion on the floor, we've done the math and we've come up with 228,000 for that as an additional piece. to the tax roll. What I'll say, speaking to that motion specifically, is I don't know when we're gonna see the barrier to entry on transit any lower than that. You know, all of the numbers that we've seen in front of us, even when we started what meager offering that we do have for transit, we were in the $400,000 mark. And now we're talking about, you know, the ability, in its simplest form to get something going. You know, we've talked about peak and off-peak hours, and that's in the chart up there. Weekend off-peak and then weekday peak with that option 4 that's put forward for an extra $228,000 to the tax roll in 2023. Like I said, that barrier isn't going to be that small in upcoming budgets. So, you know, I'm supportive of this motion that's in front of us. Now, to speak to some of Councillor Penrod's thoughts, in order to respond to that, I'd need to see some math. So, and I think most of us are in that same spot. So any clarity that we can gain on that moving forward will be important. But, you know, a motion is on the floor. I've spoken to that motion, and thanks for the opportunity, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Barnhart, Kathy, you have the floor, followed by Councillor Telebus. Then I'll start round 2. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I was ready to speak to the first motion, and then along came another thought. So my thoughts are a bit jumbled at this moment, but I don't think we've heard yet that anyone on council thinks that we don't need to do something to begin to implement transit. I think the option that was proposed in the motion moves us closer to what we need. And we don't want to add to the tax burden any more than we have to in this year when we have such a large number to cover it for inflation. I want to say thank you as well to the residents that have been advocating for the transit service and those who will be paying for it, which is all of us. And I think we all recognize this is not a want, this is a need. And some of us may need it more than others at some points in our lives, but I think the bottom line is it's something that a growing city like ours desperately needs. When I heard Councillor Penrod's proposed direction we could go, the thought that comes to mind now for me, not only the math, as Councillor Van Newkirk has mentioned, I need to see that again, but also the rest of our budget. And my thoughts were to support what Councillor Munkoff-Swain has put forward based on what I think is still coming in terms of asks, but I don't know what those asks are. We haven't gone there yet. So at this point, it feels like perhaps, and I don't know process-wise if we can even do this, can we delay the decision on this until we see the rest of the motions that are coming forward? Because I would love to see the on-demand piloted. I really would, because I think that's going to be the icing on the cake. I think that's going to help us to actually get the ridership that we need to make this seem more viable at the beginning. I know down the road it definitely will be, but
So to answer your question, Councillor Barnhart, on that point, Madam Clerk, can you interject on Councillor Marr's request? My understanding is it's a motion and we would vote on it, but please advise if you could, please. Hang on, I got too many mics on here. Give me a second. I got to turn one off to turn yours on, Miss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Councillor Barnhart could potentially move a motion to postpone to a later point in the meeting. She could postpone the motion on the floor to a later point in the meeting. That would require a vote of council. If that vote failed, then we would go back to the motion as proposed.
To clarify that procedure.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't want to do that if the rest of council is ready to vote on it, but I think there's information that we need in order to make that decision. So I would suggest then maybe let the other councillors have a say, and then we can come back to you at the end if you want to entertain that possibility. Are you okay with that at this point? I think
Any
that
further
would be
comments?
a wise.
Okay. Any further
depending
comments?
on what others say.
Okay, no other further comments? Okay, awesome. I will then finish off with the Council of Telebus for end of round 1 questions, or comments and questions, and I'll go to round 2. Nathan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Quite a few things I want to capture here. I don't want to neglect the need necessarily for full transit service. What I feel we're proposing here is simply a Band-Aid to the entire solution we need. And a good example of that is needing to get to that initial bus stop. So I guess I mean, through what I've had to experience, you have to ask your significant other or whoever else can drive in your house to go drop you off at the bus stop and then get you to the and then eventually that bus can get you to the location you need to go to. My concern with that is without implementing the on-demand, we're really not achieving much more. I couldn't imagine ridership increasing significantly for some of the individuals that we had mentioned who need this more desperately, which would be those that would need the on-demand. So again, I think it's almost a package deal to make it effective. And just given that I have tried to find efficiencies and discounts throughout this budget on the operating side, so that potentially we could look at something like that. I can't put forward over $1 million for the entire service. And as I mentioned, I feel like this would just simply be a Band-Aid. And I realize that Councillor Monkoff-Swain there had mentioned that it's a staged approach. But with ridership in a year like 2022, when we had entire services running and we're at shy of 6,300. And then I realized we reduced our services in 2023 and we only have 5,600 drivers, even with a modest, let's say 15% increase in ridership for 2024, we're still looking at about $81 per ride. And in terms of feasibility, I just don't see it at this point. Again, I do see value if we're doing the whole package, but given the difficulty that a lot of families are experiencing within Beaumont, even chatting with an individual who's near defaulting their mortgage, I don't think that this is a wise investment at this point in time. I want to be prudent of our finances, be cautious and hold back because we are seeing a significant increase already. I think until we can explore other revenue options for things like such as offsite levies that include transit to help offset some of these costs, I don't think it's a wise investment for the tax levy at this point in time. So yeah, this minor change, again, as I mentioned, I feel is a Band-Aid approach would cause a cost burden, as we know, of another 1% tax levy to all of our residents. And that's kind of where I sit right now. I would encourage individuals right now who are seeking options, doing things such as ride sharing. I know when I was working downtown, that was something that I did myself, A, to reduce impact on the environment, but B, obviously to save money and to get around town. So.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate that. So that concludes round one of comments, questions, observations. I'll start with round two. I have two speakers willing at this point, besides I'll be the third, I guess, at some point. Councillor Monkoff-Swain, you have the floor now, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Really good discussion so far. Maybe I'll tee up Curtis to run through the math for us on what you consider option three. I think a lot of people have spoken to that. While you do, I just got to make one comment. You did the math on dollar per ride on transit. I get that, but no one ever does the math on dollar per hour of usage of the pool. No one does the math of dollar per people going to the library. No one does the math of dollar per person into the youth center, et cetera. So this is transit's part of a community. We always dive in and focus on that. So I just need to get that across. But I wonder if Mr. DeBlanco could run the math so that people, so that we can I guess compare apples. So we've got 228 for option 4, and Councillor Penrod is looking at option 3. I've done the math, but I got laughed at before for that, so I'm not going to do that, and we'll just let the math guy do it.
Mr. DeBlanco, you have the floor, sir.
I believe it's on the screen right
Oh,
now, but
thank you.
The net number between those two amounts that are on the screen is 402,900. And that would be 402,900. And the net tax impact is 1.6%.
So 1.6% versus potentially 0.89 on option 4. Thank you, Mr. DeBlanco. Sam, you wish to continue with comments?
I do. Sorry, just to be clear. 1.6 versus 0.89. Okay. So a couple of things. As we get into this, so if we look at and we're gonna have to do the dance again, just as we left. But maybe if we could go back to the report to slide, page 5. Sorry, can we?
Yes, please.
Of the public report, yeah. Thank you. Page 5. PDF page 5. There we go. Okay. Thank you. So option 1 was Beaumont to Edmonton, right? Now we're talking option 2, which is, yes, Beaumont to Edmonton, but also Beaumont out through Leduc County, through Royal Oaks, and then out to the airport, right? I'll ask the question instead of stating it. Ms. Raymond, option 3, is Beaumont on the hook for 100% of these costs for option 3? So the point I want to make around option 3, and so for those who didn't hear Ms. Raymond online, the answer was yes. All these options, Beaumont is on the hook for 100%. Option 1, that's Beaumont into Edmonton, right? I can see why Beaumont is paying that cost. I have asked the mayor to have a conversation with Mayor Sohi to see if they can cost share like they committed to doing in regional transit, EMTSC. Option 3 is more than just Beaumont into Edmonton. We are doing a massive, by going through this option, there is a massive benefit to the Leduc County by going this route. So I'm very much interested in this conversation. I would like us to, if we were to go down option 3, I believe there is an opportunity for us to talk to Leduc County about sharing. Like clearly, this is benefiting their residents. The stop into Royal Oaks. This is that sub-regional collaboration that we're trying to get, and I think sub-regional collaboration talks about putting skin in the game as well. So I'm interested in option 3. So I'll just say that there is one way to take a look at this, and you've got the difference between option 2 and option 3 is that in option 2 we've only the difference is that the weekend service is only Beaumont to Millwoods, right? And so that would take out the weekend service out to the airport. But so we're looking at option 3 for 402,000 or 1.6%. The couple of things that I wanted to talk about, because on demand, there was a discussion here around Band-Aid solution. And like I said before, this is, I believe, this staged approach, but what I'm hearing from my fellow councillors is if we're going to do it, let's do it properly and really invest in our transit. So maybe I wonder if administration could just speak to a bit about how we've paid for transit historically, how we're proposing to pay for it moving forward. And really the root of the question I'm getting to is for this on-demand pilot project, is there the ability to pay for something like that from our reserves? Recognizing that we would ultimately need to catch that up, but is there an ability to, like it's got the pilot word in there, so depending on the health of that particular reserve. So maybe the first question is just explain how we've paid for transit over the last few years.
So transit over the past few years have been funded from a combination of taxes and a phase-in from reserves over a number 3 or 4 years, partially offsetting the cost of transit to phase it into full cost. Second part or first part of the question on the pilot project and funding source. Currently, the reserve balances are not healthy. I would be hesitant to recommend utilizing reserves to fund that pilot project.
Thank you, Mr. Blanco.
So can you just point to the specific reserve allocation that you are speaking to? Just so we can see what you say not healthy, but so page 41 of our budget.
Hard copy, page 41. Your mic's on, Curtis, when you need it. Yeah,
Right.
you're good.
So page 41, operating reserves, top section of the table is the financial stabilization reserve, which sits at 722,000. This is as a projected close for 2024. This is approximately 1.8 million below the minimum threshold. And the real intent of a financial stabilization reserve is to be there to fund unforeseen events rather than fund projects. But the most concerning thing is the actual balance of it.
Thank you. Very, very helpful. So effectively, if we were looking to go all the way and do the on-demand, what administration is strongly recommended is that would be funded from the tax levy. So let me go back to option 3 here, and I hear what you're saying, Councillor Penrod, especially because we've been able to chip away at this budget, I think prudently here, that there is space, and if we're going to do it, why not do it? Why not do it all? I guess the question for administration is, what is the ability to go back to Leduc County, to go back to the city of Leduc to look at potential cost sharing options for option 3? Can we make a decision tonight and also direct administration to have that conversation with the county? Just help us with that, please.
Is that a Ms. Raymond question or potentially a CEO's question? Mr. Dowler, Mr. DeBlanco? CEO Schwartz, did you wish to jump in on that one?
Yeah, and I'll rely on Ms. Raymond to fill me in as well, correct me. Certainly we can go back. My understanding is these costs were achieved through those types of conversations, and that the notion of them paying a portion is built in, but we would certainly have a better chance of negotiating better prices if we were involved in a sub-regional model such as that one.
So your point was correct. I'm not sure to answer the question though. So do we have the ability, if we were to move and approve option 3 and direct administration to engage the county to see if they were prepared to pay a certain percentage? We've negotiated with the county before on multiple things. Can we do that in today?
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to maybe just ask, and I'll pause here because I want to get other people's thoughts around option 3. But I did want to talk about user fees, the cost of riding the bus. I recognize user fees are going to come up later on, but I'm just wondering, administration, the mayor, when would be the right time to talk about the user fees or the cost of the bus in this model? So, yeah, maybe I'll leave it there, and I'll wait for administration to. I think we should talk about that right now. I'll yield the microphone for other people to weigh in on option 3. I'm not opposed to it. Councillor Penrod, you made some very compelling arguments there for 1.6. Yeah, I'm considering that. So I'll stop there and see where everyone else goes. But then I do want to make sure we have a chat about the user fees, the cost to ride the bus.
We'll get there at some point, I'm sure, this evening. So Councillor Penrod, followed by Councillor Newkirk. Philip, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. I do want to come back to some of the advice that we got, and I took the opportunity to pick the brain of someone on Tuesday night who has intimate knowledge of Leduc's on-demand transit and transit system as a whole. One of the questions we posed was, all things being equal, if you could start fresh, how would you start? And his advice, as I recall it, correct me if I'm wrong, was if I could do it, I'd lean way into on-demand. For a variety of reasons, not the least of which is they can't keep up to the demand that on-demand transit is creating in their community. And so I think Councillor Barnhart's right that it is the solution that will ultimately tie everything together and really drive ridership for the next generation, as well as solving some of the problems of services and people fleeing the community for lack of those services, like seniors and students. I'm increasingly leaning towards, I'm not sure we can fit that pilot into the budget this year. And so I think in the interest of moving towards a decision tonight, I think I would come back to focusing on 3. And really, I guess I would just tie that together by saying there is a final piece of the report that I did want to draw people's attention to. And that was the offering of tying the on-demand service to one of the sub-regional routes. In that case, I looked at option 4 because I know we can't afford option 3 in the sub-regional route as well as on-demand. And so I looked at the option of on-demand in combination with 4, which is, in my opinion, the least that we can do as far as expanding our transit service this year. Option 4 on its own of the sub-regional road options. And so that one, however, comes in at just about 3.3% increase to the tax levy. So that's where I'm coming to. That feels like a deal breaker to me, as I'm hearing public feedback on it, as I'm hearing my colleagues reflect on it, taking advice from administration locally and in the region. But I think that's just a number I wanted to draw people's minds to, because I think over the next not very many years, that's the direction that we do need to head. The only other thing that I'll say about the on-demand piece is I do want to be careful as we talk about that. We haven't committed to, and one of the beauties of on-demand is because there's so much less bricks and mortar infrastructure associated with on-demand transit, it's less risky to run a pilot because we can actually run the pilot. And the other advice that we received from regional administration was on-demand transit is a data pig. It just gobbles up data and spits it out and gives us tons of information by which to make better decisions going forward, building out our transit. And so that's a piece that I covet too. I know we're a community that wants to make data informed decisions and be very strategic in that way. And so, but I think that I'm going to have to sit on my hands and wait for another year for the on-demand piece. So I'll just conclude by saying, I don't know operationally how we manage the motion that's on the table. I wouldn't want to vote on the motion that's on the table before we have a chance to vote on 3. So one way to do that would be to withdraw the motion currently on, make a new motion that proposes 3, see how all our colleagues feel about that, and then we can come back to your original motion if need be.
Thank you, Councillor. Councilman Newkirk, you have the floor next, followed by Councilman Telebus. Steve, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I pushed my button because I knew I'd have something to say eventually. And Councillor Penrod, your head just clicked where mine did, right? Like I want to see a positive move forward here in some way, shape, and form, and probably starting with the more expensive option, seeing where the room's at, and then going into the least expensive option. 3 and 4 is probably a good idea. I do want to speak to the on-demand piece though, a little bit. I think the caveat to the answer that we heard about, all things being equal, as I would do the on-demand first, is just how our communities are set up completely differently. In Leduc and Beaumont, we're organized differently spatially. Our business, residential, mix is completely different. Our footprint's different. We're not separated by a highway. We don't have industrial areas and stuff. And I think one of the things that the presenter maybe was excited about is the ability to access into previously inaccessible areas. And I think that to me is the biggest take home of industrial spots and stuff like that, that does allow the bus on demand. I think there's been positive feedback on bus on demand wherever it's been deployed, Cochrane, Okotoks, different places. So anyways, but I don't think it's for this year. I think we need to focus on transforming our meager offering into something a little bit more, and I'll have to decide based upon the motions, come up what my tolerance on the tax roll is for that. So that's all for right now for me, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Telebus. Nathan, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess first question, I just looking for clarification from Mr. DeBlanco in regards to your comment that in regards to our initial funding for transit. If I heard you correctly, I believe that you had mentioned that originally it was partially funded from reserves, and that our goal, if it hasn't happened already, is to phase out that reserve funding. Am I correct in saying that?
Thanks for the question. So at this point, the existing transit service is fully funded by the tax levy. 2023 was the first year that from the initiation, there was a phasing of approximately 50 to 60%, then down to now it's fully funded by the tax levy.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Obviously, I asked that question because I think it's important. It changes the outcome as to what we would see the following year or even this year. So, so thank you for answering that. I'm wondering if we could potentially have the opportunity to postpone this decision and seek guidance from some of the regional counterparts in terms of additional funding that they may consider providing. Reason I say that is because right now, as I mentioned, I feel like if we go with the one option, it's simply a Band-Aid. If we can go with option 3 and be at a similar price point based on some of the additional funding we could potentially receive, then that's something that I would be much more likely to support.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Any further comments? Sam, your motion's on the floor. There was some discussion about option 3, which I don't think is marginally more expensive compared to option 4. It's much more expensive. But did you want to continue with your motion here at this point, or decide to withdraw it, or continue on? Sam, you have the floor.
So I'm a make a decision guy, but I'm also make a decision that's going to win the vote guy. And so what I'm hearing is, people might be comfortable with option 3 if the city or the county might want to kick in a little bit of cash that would help people make that decision. And we don't know that answer yet, right? So I don't want people to vote on this. But if we want this to start up in April, that's not going to give administration enough time to have that conversation, right? So personally, I'm happy to withdraw the motion and go through 3 and then 1. I get start at the top and move your way down. Where I'm at is approving option 1. Sorry, option 4. I'm steering at option 1. I'm just trying to keep you awake here, Kathy. Option 4, and direct administration to say, hey, look, we're really interested in this regional ridership. Well, we can only do that if Edmonton / Leduc County kicks in. But I want us to move forward. I don't want us to delay this anymore. And so if we can, and hey, it takes a little bit longer, and then maybe September we add that additional piece, and I think that's how I would like to go. So to play this out would be to pass option 4 in my mind, and also pass a subsequent motion to direct administration to engage in conversations with our regional partners to gauge their interest. And I would remind Edmonton that they previously committed to pay 20% of our fare from Millwoods into Edmonton, from Beaumont into Millwoods. So that's my preference. Then we can pass this here, and then I'll say our favorite spring budget, which we like to refer things to. That could be times that we could come back, and then maybe in the fall when university starts up and all that sort of stuff, we could look at option 3. So That's how I would prefer to play it. But if Councillor Penrod, if you want to vote on option 3, I would vote against it because I don't know enough yet, right? So, yeah, that's how my weird brain thinks.
Let me try and help you with that, Sam, as best I could. I believe we need to make a decision tonight as best we can, or not make a decision. We want to approach the county or the Duke with any additional potential funding from them. We've got to go with them with an option that we're prepared to go forward with in my opinion, is option 4. I'm not in support of option 3. Based on the tax increase, it's virtually double the tax increase. So to use a fiscally responsible hat for a moment, I do believe transit's important. I think we need to do in a staged approach, as you mentioned in your comments. I think option 4 gives us a bona fide transit system for our residents and workers to come from Edmonton to Beaumont. A place to start. We can always expand the program down the road. Our ridership is above expectation, which would be great. Option 3, I think, is just too expensive from a tax levy perspective, and my fiscal hat would not support more than 0.9% tax levy versus the 1.6 something Mr. DeBlanco said for option 3. That is not marginally different. That's substantially different in cost, in my opinion. So I prefer we deal with the motion before us, and if it is successful, we could look at talking to the county, as you suggested, for potential cost sharing, but I think we need to go forward with them with a decision on our transit, with them as our partners, and we go forward from there. So I think if we don't do the decision tonight, we put our budget in turmoil in terms of coming back in the spring and trying to redo the budget in the spring. I'd rather do it tonight and have a plan going April 1st, and communication can tell all residents April 1st, our transit system is coming. We can get some momentum built in the community and go from there. So Councillor Barnhart, did you wish to weigh in on this conversation further?
Yeah, I would like to support the motion that's currently on the floor, not because I don't want to see more service and the on-demand, but I don't want to wait any longer. Really, I think there are people that have been extremely patient, and it's costing them not only stress, but probably loss of income and school being late, et cetera. So I'd like to move on this. As far as I can see, this is a question that this does not put on demand, and like it's on demand could still come. There's no detriment to putting this in place now. To me, it is definitely has to be staged because we don't have the answers we need, which is to find additional funding from our partners. So that I hope that maybe we need something more than just hope. But I hope that this is going to be a direction we follow to get more conversations happening about the on-demand and see if we can come up with some partnership dollars there or sponsorship dollars. That's another way to go. But yes, I would be supporting this at this time.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate that. Councillor Telebus, and I'll kind of go from that point. Nathan, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Again, I just want to mention, I see the value in having transit and making sure that we can get our community in and out. But what we're proposing here is again, a slight difference in what we have now. It's still a matter of getting from point A to point B, and you better hope you live close to point A. If you don't, unfortunately, you're gonna have to drive there, or you're gonna have to walk quite a bit. So for that reason, I'm not gonna support this motion, but down the road in future conversations, if we can look at, again, alternate funding options, perhaps those offsite levies or other revenue, then that's something that I would consider down the road.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm seeing no further hands up for comments. So Sam, it is your motion. I'll entertain any final comments you may have before I call for the vote on motion before us now. Sam, you have the floor if you wish.
No, I think the numbers are there, sir. Let's vote.
Okay, if you have no further comments, I appreciate everyone's perspective and I appreciate the candid viewpoints we've discussed this evening. I'm looking forward to this decision and I hope it's going to go, sorry, I won't say that. I'm not saying hope, that's not the proper way to do it. So I hope we're gonna have a nice, good conversation. So having said that, Council, I'm going to ask you to vote on the motion before you. That motion carries 5-2 in favor. Councillors pardon me, my mistake, I miscounted. That motion carries 6-1 in favor. Councillor Telebus no. The other 6 members of council were positive, so it carries 6-1.
So I think there's 2 following motions that are going to come from that.
Okay. So that carries 6-1.
So the,
You have a follow-up discussion,
yeah,
Councilman Swain?
so I would we'll wait for the motion to get here, but this is along the lines of trying to talk to our regional partners. I want to get to option 3, and I want to direct administration, and I'm not sure how we could put this in here, but I think there's a political conversation that needs to happen as well. To work with our regional partners. So I know Ms. Bujay has got a motion.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yep.
Do you want to do it tonight?
Yep.
Or we want to do it at the next council meeting and just so we're clear?
Do it tonight.
Okay.
I want to be able to,
Yeah.
I want to be able to get
I'm
out of
fine with
here.
that.
No, and to be clear, I want to be able to walk out of here and tell residents what we're doing on transit. And
Yep.
what we're doing, if these motions passed, is significantly increasing our transit ridership. So people can now rely that they're going to move forward. And also that we're going to go after our regional partners to see if we can expand that transit out
Okay.
to the airport.
So while that's being done with Madam Clerk, Mr. DeBlanco, if you could indulge me for a moment. My math at the 228,000 of additional costs, I divided by 254,000 being 1%, I'm getting 0.897 additional to the tax levy. So I'm going from 4.82 where we finished last night to 5.717. Could you mind just confirming that if my math is reasonably correct on that, so we know exactly where we are with the proposed tax levy after this motion we just passed, please, while we're waiting for the motion to be done?
Sure. I
Thank
think
you.
Ms. Mead is able to throw the change tracking up on the screen here. We're at
Thank you.
6.0.
6.0. 6.0? Okay. Okay, but that says new transit 1.6. That was for option 3. We voted on option 4, I believe, which is only 228,000 of additional tax levy dollars, was my understanding. Did I miss something? Maybe I did. Oh, sorry, Mr. Blanco, your mic is now on.
Yeah, $228,100 is the sum of negative 180 and 408, 100.
Okay, thank you. I just, so we're at 6.0 now. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, I think we're ready for the motion. Sandy's working overtime here, as always.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
So I will move that administration continue to negotiate with regional partners regarding cost sharing opportunities regarding option 3 as set out in the sub-regional transit report, and report back to council by the end of the first quarter of 2024. Just briefly speak to it. I won't reiterate, but I do want to stress the point that I recognize administration does the lion's share of this, but there is a political conversation here that can happen. And, you know, I'll leave that to you. I don't think we need to motion you to have these conversations.
No.
But I hope administration will use you and the connections and the relationships that you've built. And if we go out and we ask Leduc County, the city of Leduc and city of Edmonton, they all come back and say no, then we probably are where we are. But I think, you know, around the spirit of regional collaboration, more than happy to give you the speaking points around how much Edmonton was proposing to contribute on the regional model, which was very little for them, but very impactful for us. So that's why I think this is important for us to continue that to get to option 3.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Councilor Cook, do you wish to speak to the motion? Your mic was on. Okay, no problem. I was just assuming that was just an oversight. No problem. Okay, any further additional members of council willing to offer comments or thoughts on the motion before us? I'm seeing none. With that, council, we'll go straight to the vote then. Would you please vote on the motion before you on the screen? Thank you, council. That carries unanimously. 7-0. Motion is carried. Thank you. We have dealt with transit. We're at 7:24. I think now's the time for a nice 10-minute break. Sorry. So we'll go have a break then? Yeah, okay, we'll have a